This video is going to make me look like a crazy person, but this is my complete planning and journal system. It's not for everyone, but it works for me. But let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura from How to Get Your Shit Together, and I help busy people get organized, get motivated, and get planning. I am always asked how I plan and structure my days, and I have shared various little bits over the years, but today I am going to be showing you my entire complicated system. I call it FRANKENPLANNER because I use various different bits and pieces and then I lump them all together and somehow they keep my productivity alive. So if you want to see how I get so much stuff done and stay reasonably sane, keep watching. This video is a collab with the exceptional Carie Harling. She's like the Galadriel of the planning world. All-knowing, all-powerful, elven features, totally mesmerizing. If you're a planner, you already know who Carie is. If you're not and you're just getting started, wow, you're in for a treat. When you have finished watching this video, head on over and watch hers. It will be linked. She is going to be showing you how she incorporates journaling into her planning. She's got 7 kids, so her planning system is slick. This woman knows what she's talking about. Now, let me stress at the outset that my system will not work for everyone. In fact, it probably will work for nobody bar me. But here it is, bear with me because it gets all kinds of cuckoo. The bulk of my planning is done digitally. I use 2 apps mainly for that. I use Google Calendar and an app called TeuxDeux. I have talked about that before. I use the desktop version mainly, but I do also have the app on my iPhone so that I can, quickly add things or tick things off on the go. Okay, let me start with Google Calendar because that is probably the one that you're going to be most familiar with and the one that's going to be the quickest and easiest to explain. It has 2 main purposes for me. One as a kind of general calendar for appointments and events and such like. I share that with my husband so that we don't clash on anything. Well, appointments and things, anyway. And then I have a separate calendar that I use as my editorial calendar. This is where I plug in all of my blog posts and videos and any holidays that might be relevant to those, something that I could create content around. I color code everything in Google Calendar just so that I can see where everything is at a glance. I won't go through all of them because we'd be here all day, but the main ones are green for blog posts and red for videos. And then there will be a different shade of green and red depending on whether or not I have started working on it. And that's only the start of the crazy. Moving on then to TeuxDeux. This is where the vast majority, this is where the bulk of my planning gets done. I'm going to try and explain it as easily as I can, but if something doesn't make sense or you've got a question, pop it in the comments below. Every Sunday I sit down and plan out the coming week in TeuxDeux. I check Google Calendar first to see if there are any appointments or events or anything that I haven't already plugged into TeuxDeux, and I also look to see what videos and blog posts I have due that week. I kind of have a basic framework already done out in TeuxDeux. I have recurring tasks set up for things that happen on a very regular basis, so things like promoting videos every Thursday, returning library books every Friday, laundry every Sunday, the things that always stay the same. So some of my week will already be mapped out for me. I also have recurring kind of placeholders for lunch and dinner. These serve as the breaks in my day, but they're also really good guidelines for how I'm doing, how my day is progressing. So for example, if it gets to lunchtime, I know that I should have completed everything before that. And if I haven't, it's time to get my arse in gear. So I've got that basic framework, and then I break down all the tasks that I have to and want to get done that week, and I start slotting them in. I generally tend to work in blocks of time, so 45 minutes for focused work like writing and researching, and then 15 minutes of chores. And that means that unless one week is particularly busy for work, I am usually staying on top of the housework. It's just naturally incorporated into my day. Plus, by alternating between physical and mental tasks, I find that I'm able to keep going a lot longer because when one part of me is active, the other part is resting. I talk about that a lot more in my e-course, the Productivity Power Up, but that is one of the little tricks that I use for keeping my energy levels and my motivation as high as possible throughout the day. So if a focused task is going to take longer than 45 minutes, I break it down. That's why I will never have something like write a blog post on my to-do list. Instead, I have start writing blog post, continue writing blog post, finish writing blog post, and edit blog post. I try to eat a frog first, that is to work on my most important task first. That gets my day off to a great start. You know, I get all of the grunt work out of the way, or at least it gets me over the hump. And I just generally try to keep the most important and mentally demanding stuff for the morning, because as the day goes on, naturally I will start to feel more tired and more distracted, or something might unexpectedly crop up. Now, as well as daily to-dos, you can also keep lists in the To-Do app. Now, I use these for all sorts, but there are 3 that are most relevant for this video. My nigglers list, my shit list, and my waiting on list. My nigglers list is where I put small things that will only take a few minutes to complete, but just aren't really that important. If I find during the week that I have some unexpected free time, I will do what I call nixing the nigglers. That is where I try to complete as many as I can. My shit list is for longer tasks that aren't really that important. Things that I want to do someday, but I'm happy to let them sit there for now. And my waiting on list is where I write down things like orders I have placed or phone calls or emails I'm expecting. By looking at that about once a week, I know what I need to start following up on. Now, obviously not every day is the same. You know, someday I'll have to run errands or record a video, but that is the basic structure of my days. I try to keep weekends as flexible as possible. I do still work, but generally not as much. Usually I'm just catching up on stuff that I didn't get done during the week, but occasionally, if I have the time and the motivation, I will turn to my shit list. At the end of each day, I do a really quick review. If there was something that I didn't get done that day, I will try and slot it in somewhere later in the week, or maybe just bump it down to the shit list. And then I will look forward to the following day and see if any of it needs tweaking. Then in the last week of each month, usually around the 25th, I do what I call a pre-monthly review. This is where I take a few minutes just to look back over the things that I wanted to achieve that month, to see what is still left to do, and then I try and rearrange my schedule for the last few days of that month so that I can haul ass and reach those goals. And then on the last day of each month, I do a monthly review. I won't go into it in too much detail here because I've already covered it in another video, but in essence, I have a template document on my laptop that contains 5 headings plus my resolutions. The 5 headings are what went well this month so that I can celebrate my successes, what needed improvement, diet and exercise, always, what I want to do next month and what my priority is for next month, and I usually try and limit this just to 1 or 2 things. And then notes, where I jot down anything else that I think is relevant or important. For each of my resolutions then, I quickly jot down in like a sentence or 2 the progress that I made on them that month and what the next step is. And I then look over my monthly review every Sunday when I sit down, and that just helps to kind of keep me on track towards my goals. It helps to keep them front and center when I am planning out my days. Okay, that is just the start of the crazy. My Encyclopedia is coming up, but that is my core planning system. About once or twice a year then, I will sit down and do a brain dump. This is when I am feeling particularly overwhelmed, when I feel like I've got a lot on my plate. I sit down and I just write a long list of all the tasks I can think of, just to get them all out of my head, and I do them in this notebook. Anytime I have a lot on, or there is something that I really want to grapple with, the pen and paper come out. Nice clean slate. And I think it's a very tactile thing, so it makes me feel a little bit more in control. I don't know, there's something about writing things down. It forces me to slow down and really think about things. This year I have also started using a physical planner for the first time in years. I am using this as a cleaning planner and also as a kind of editorial calendar. I use the month at a glance to slot in cleaning tasks. I'm really trying to get into a much better cleaning routine, particularly with dusting, which I am terrible at. Never do it, but that's about to change. I use the weekly layout then for work. It is divided into 3 sections. I use the top one just for writing down the blog posts and videos that I'm planning for that time. The middle then is to note down any holidays or events or anything like that. Any kind of general things I may need to remember. And then I use the final section to write down any kind of milestones or little successes. I don't know, I do like it for the cleaning stuff, but I'm probably going to stick to Google Calendar for the editorial stuff. And now for my note-taking or memory keeping or journaling or whatever you want to call it. Still on the crazy train. It is kind of bullet journaling meets mind sweeps. I can't get fully on board with bullet journaling because I'm not a rapid logger. I just can't take quick notes. When it comes to writing, it is either slow or stop. That is just the way I am. If you are not familiar with mind sweeping, it is basically the process whereby you sweep your mind of all your tasks and you write them down on paper. It is different to brain dumps in that it is an ongoing process. And that is how I do it. Let me just show you because that's easier. So this is my Encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia of me. Just a standard square grid A4 notepad. Each morning I write the day and the date, and then I just log everything as the day goes on. Every task I do, every thought or idea I have, every time I exercise, how much water I'm drinking, every time Scout says or does something funny, what I'm reading, etc. Just one line after another every time I finish a big task or when I finish a bottle of water or something like that, or an idea occurs to me, I jot it down. Then at the end of each day I make a note of what made me happy that day and why, and I just write down a very quick general overview of how I feel the day went. Then the next morning I skip a line, I write the day and the date, and off I go again. The reason I do it is mainly just to get stuff out of my head, to free up as much mental capacity as I can, but it's also because I have a terrible memory. This notebook sits beside me on my desk all day, which is where I spend the majority of my day, so it is really easy to jot things down. If I am away from it and something occurs to me, then I just make a note on my phone and I add it in later. But this is a record of my life, from the kind of momentous to the mundane. I really wish I had started doing this earlier. I started on January 1st, 2016. And at the end of each year, I sit down and read through all of the entries from that year. And it gives me a really great sense of how much I've achieved and all of the great things that happened that year, and just generally how full my life is. Because otherwise, I'd forget. Okay, it's about to get even more complicated. Every so often, sometimes it's a few times a week, other times months can go by, but I transfer these notes into another notebook. I know it sounds like I am doubling up on work, so let me explain why I do it and why it works for me. The big reason, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is that I am a perfectionist. If I had to keep this all nice and neat and tidy, I wouldn't do it. So I allow myself to be messy in here. You know, sometimes I remember something, so I go back and just fill it in. I scribble things out. I quickly jot down, phone numbers, reference numbers, things like that. So this is a catch-all. It is a higgledy-piggledy dumping ground. This is where I keep it neat. Once it gets to here, all of the unnecessary stuff, like those reference numbers, have been filtered out. So this is just full of the stuff that I want to remember. I also add in like quote pages and lists and monthly highlight pages. So this one is more similar to a bullet journal, though like I said, you won't find much rapid logging in here. I'm a rambler, both in speaking and writing. Now I know that it's going to sound insane to a lot of people. Yes, it takes a lot more time and effort. Yes, it uses more paper, but it works for me. I have the freedom to scribble whatever I want in here, and the joy of knowing that it is all neatly organized in here. Now, I do occasionally try different things. Sometimes I will add on certain elements, like right now I am using the Morning Sidekick journal from Habit Nest to try and create a great morning routine. So there are kind of branches of my system that will come and go, but Google Calendar, TeuxDeux, my Mindsweep notebook, and my kind of bullet journal notebook are the core of my system. I have been using each of them for several years and they're still going strong. Everything I have referenced is linked below. I have more videos on planning, including a flip through of one of my completed journals. You can find that here. And remember to hop on over to Carrie's video. I can't wait to see it. Love her. Until then, go raibh míle maith agaibh. Agus bheici mé sibh go luath. Slán.